It began not with ceremony, but with silence, the kind that lingers in rooms where grief has lived too long. The cameras rolled quietly, the light was soft, and in that stillness the heir to the British throne chose to speak of something the monarchy has avoided for centuries, the pain that cannot be wrapped in protocol or managed by duty. On World Mental Health Day, the future king abandoned the comfort of scripted addresses and polished speeches. Instead, he sat face to face with a woman whose story could shatter even the most stoic soul. Ryan Manning, a mother, a widow, a survivor. In 2012, she lost her baby son George, just a year old. 5 days later, her husband Paul took his own life. The world as she knew it vanished. Yet somehow, from that wreckage, she built something luminous, a will to help others who stand on that same precipice between despair and endurance. Prince William met her not as a monarch in waiting, but as a man who understands loss. His voice, measured but tender, carried no trace of royal distance. The best way to prevent suicide, he said quietly, is to talk about it. The words were simple, almost stark, but in their simplicity lay defiance of a culture that teaches silence as strength, of a society that hides its pain behind polite smiles and measured tones. The prince spoke not from theory, but from something deeper, an understanding that even those born into privilege are not shielded from the private storms of the mind. His mother's death, his years of public grief, the loneliness of expectation, these had all carved empathy into his character. Now, he was using his position not to command, but to connect. As he listened to Ryan, his expression never hardened into formality. There was compassion in his stillness. And as she described the unbearable weight of her losses, he did not interrupt, did not search for platitudes. He simply listened, something so simple, yet so revolutionary in a world that measures value by productivity and presence by image. This meeting, released as a short film from Kensington Palace, became something larger than advocacy. It was a statement of intent, a declaration that under Prince William, the monarchy would no longer merely symbolize endurance, but participation. It would not simply observe the struggles of its people from afar, it would share them, even the darkest ones. But this was not just a conversation. It was the unveiling of a movement. Alongside the video came a quietly momentous announcement, the formation of the National Suicide Prevention Network, an ambitious project under the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Its mission is clear: to unite the fragmented efforts across the United Kingdom into one cohesive front. For the first time, charities from all 4 nations, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, will work under one shared framework, combining research, resources, and outreach. The purpose is not ceremonial. It is strategic, urgent, and deeply human. For years, experts have warned that the UK's suicide prevention efforts have been hampered by regional divides, brilliant local organisations working in isolation, often competing for attention and funding. The Prince's initiative aims to break that pattern, to replace disconnection with cooperation. In this, one can see the outlines of William's vision for the monarchy itself. He believes leadership is not control, but coordination, not hierarchy, but harmony. The same philosophy that shapes his family life now extends to his public mission, to build bridges where silence once stood. Those who know him say the issue of mental health has become one of his defining callings. It began years ago with the Heads Together campaign, when he, Catherine, and Prince Harry dared to speak publicly about therapy, anxiety, and emotional struggle, a royal taboo shattered in prime time. But where that campaign focused on awareness, this new phase is about structure, endurance, and legacy. It marks William's evolution from advocate to architect. And it could not have come at a more urgent moment. Across the UK, suicide remains the leading cause of death among people under 45. Behind every statistic lies a silence, families who didn't see the signs, friends who didn't know what to say. William's message, then, is as much about education as empathy. Talking saves lives. Connection saves lives. And if a prince must be the one to remind a weary world of that truth, so be it. For Ryan Manning, the conversation with the prince was both a remembrance and a release. She spoke of the night her husband died, of the days that followed, of the unbearable quiet that filled her home. But she also spoke of rebuilding, of founding a charity, of using her pain to help others survive theirs. The prince called her story extraordinary, but in his eyes there was something more personal, recognition. The acknowledgement that grief is the one language that unites us all, royal or not. The timing of this initiative is not accidental. It arrives at a moment when Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has herself stepped back from public duties to recover her health. The couple's shared emphasis on mental and emotional well-being is not a slogan, it is a philosophy. Together, they have woven compassion into the fabric of their public image, transforming what it means to be royal in the modern age. Their message is not one of perfection, but participation. They are redefining visibility, not as endless appearances and polished smiles, but as presence where it matters most. In this, William's words, "Change is on my agenda," take on new resonance. He is changing what it means to lead, to serve, to heal. When Kensington Palace released the statement accompanying the film, it closed with a line that seemed to echo through the nation, "Talking about suicide is essential to prevent it." It was more than a public service message, it was a cultural correction. The British monarchy, once synonymous with reserve, was now encouraging the one thing it had avoided for centuries, open vulnerability. And it matters. Because when someone like the Prince of Wales speaks of suicide, the stigma begins to fracture. When a man, who has walked behind his mother's coffin, tells others to talk about pain, the taboo begins to fade. It becomes permission, not to be perfect, but to be human. There is something almost poetic in this shift. His grandmother's monarchy was built on distance. His father's, on tradition. William's may yet be built on connection. And that connection, paradoxically, may prove to be the most enduring kind of power. As he continues his advocacy, the prince is not merely shaping policy, he is shaping perception. For every parent who listens to this story and decides to speak to their child, for every friend who checks in on another, for every stranger who realizes they are not alone, this work becomes something far greater than awareness. It becomes a quiet revolution. What William and Catherine are constructing together is not just a network of charities, but a new moral vocabulary for public life, one that replaces stoicism with compassion, appearance with authenticity. Theirs is a monarchy that no longer seeks to be untouchable, but to touch lives. Perhaps that is why this moment feels so profound. It is not about royalty, it is about humanity. The future King of England has made it clear that his crown will not be worn above others, but among them. His kingdom, he seems to say, will not be built from marble and myth, but from the fragile, resilient threads of empathy that bind one human being to another. For centuries, monarchs have spoken of duty, service, and strength. Prince William speaks instead of listening, of grief, of healing. In his voice, the British monarchy finds something it has not known for generations: vulnerability without weakness, leadership without distance. And in that vulnerability lies hope. Because the greatest act of courage is not conquering others, but confronting the silence within ourselves.